The Black Scholars Podcast.
blackscholarspublishing.com.
That we should get our own. Once we have our own, we're respected for the fact that we can create our own. And that's equality right there.
What you call an icon living? Start a record label, Miss Fish just did it. Nylon cover 5 minutes.
Season 2. Welcome, guys, to the Black Scholars Podcast. I am your host, Leonard Andre Wilson Jr. Please don't forget to say the Junior. I'm excited, guys, to bring you guys this show, this particular episode. We're going to get the opportunity to speak with a Salesforce administrator. Not only is she a Salesforce administrator, she's also a Salesforce business analyst. I don't want to provide too much information up front about Salesforce for those of you who've maybe heard it, don't know much about it. What does a Salesforce admin do? How much do they make? They make good money. I'll let you guys do the research. How much does a Salesforce business analyst make? They make good money as well. I'll let you guys do the research. And there'll probably be some more information coming out about Salesforce. Salesforce is one of those technologies similar to Microsoft or I can't even think of another similar comparison. But basically, the technology encompasses so much. There's so many different things that we can dig and dive into. Now, one thing during this conversation you guys will hear as I'm talking to Brandi, I let Brandi know that, hey, I'm actually studying for my Salesforce technical professional certification. Well, I would like to let you guys know who have been holding me down since 2018. My times fly when you're having fun, right? But I have successfully passed my Salesforce certification, and the man's is a Salesforce certified administrator. Well, I don't have the job yet, but I do have the certification. Next step, as Brandi gets into after she got her certification, it's about trying to get some more experience and to start a portfolio, because when you get in these interviews, you want to be able to communicate well based on actual projects you've worked on. So those could be real projects that you work on for a company, either as a volunteer or as a freelancer, or you can create a project and you can come up with very realistic hypothetical scenarios regarding business, because ultimately that's what Salesforce does. It helps solve business problems. It provides a technical automated solution for a lot of business problems. And overall, just thinking about everything that's going on in the economy, businesses are looking for and have been looking for ways of being more efficient, ways of being more effective. I pretty much almost fell in, I won't say love, but I'll say lust with Salesforce since 2017, when I had the chance to use it as a part-time car salesman. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, thought it was beautiful technology, thought it was very easy to use. And so now we're here several years later, and I'm excited about the opportunities. I'm excited about the opportunities not just for myself, but for you guys as well too. Not saying that you have to go into tech or you have to go into Salesforce. I'm not leaning you toward anything, but I just want to be able to provide you guys this type of content, this type of information, because you deserve it. You can only find but so much doing the Google search or checking out on YouTube, and you can find a lot, but it's just helpful when you have the opportunity to actually speak with or hear from someone that is actively doing something that you're considering doing. So, anywho, enjoy the episode. Please, please, please support the podcast. BlackScholarsClothing.com. Again, go to BlackScholarsClothing.com. If you have any guest suggestions, if you have any topic suggestions, if you just want to reach out, the email is theblackscholarspodcast@gmail.com, theblackscholarspodcast.com. Talk to you guys soon. So let's get started. So Brandi Jones, welcome to the Black Scholars Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to season 2. And you are a Salesforce admin, correct?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me. I am a Salesforce admin and business analyst.
So wait, so you have 2 roles in one?
Yes, my official title is 2 roles in one, which is really fun.
Wow. How does that happen? How did that come to matriculation?
So with my company, while I was interviewing for them and they were telling me about the use case scenarios that they were having. So my company is very much in Salesforce, but there are certain programs that haven't been onboarding at all into Salesforce, which is what they brought me on to do. So of course, as a business analyst, I had to assess all of their processes before I could even begin to implement them into Salesforce. And then the admin part comes in because they're also expecting me to be the person that builds and designs the implementation.
Wow, that is awesome. So when you think about your normal day, what percentage of it is focused on business analyst duties versus Salesforce admin duties?
So a lot of it in the beginning was strictly business analyst work. They had worked with a consultant previously, so it was a lot of documentation review. My first whole 30 days was really getting a strong picture of the landscape that I would be working with. Now I would say it's probably 60-40, with the 40 being admin work, because the other person that is on my team that has my job also does admin work with another one of the programs. I help her a lot with support tickets now, and things like that. And then in addition to now beginning to kind of work and design and build the solutions for the program that I'm working with in Salesforce.
Wow, that's awesome. So just honestly, do you feel like it's overwhelming at sometimes? Because literally you're doing 2 different, not just roles, but these are actual career paths. For those that don't know, in Salesforce, a lot of people focus specifically on being a business analyst. And then there are others that specifically focus on just being an admin. So you're doing both. So do you get frustrated at times, or how's that working out?
I wouldn't say frustrated, but I know when I first joined my job, I definitely had imposter syndrome really, really badly. And I had to take a step back and really assess and be like, you're here for a reason. They hired you for a reason. I can see how someone that's probably not my type A personality could get overwhelmed very easily, because it is a lot of multitasking, which I mean, for admins, that's kind of the same case too, except you're just strictly working the platform. But for me, I'm working in and outside of the platform. But I genuinely enjoy the work that I do. So I find it rewarding.
That's awesome. That's excellent. And let's backpedal a bit, because we just went into it. I gave you kind of like an overview, a synopsis of really what the podcast is for. And basically our tribe is Black and Brown educators. And season 2 is literally all about how can we level up, not just career-wise, but overall, holistic success. So for a teacher, right? Or maybe a school counselor or anyone that's in education right now, and they've seen some things online, maybe LinkedIn, maybe they've seen it on Business Insider, Salesforce. How would you describe what Salesforce actually does? What is it as a technology?
So as we know, technical terms, Salesforce is a CRM, which stands for Customer Relationship Management Software. But if you were to associated with schools, essentially it is kind of like a full system software that handles all of the things I would say the teachers, the principals, everybody that's a part of an education team does in one software.
Yeah, and how I was first introduced to Salesforce was actually as an end user. So
Same.
by day, I was like top-notch English teacher, grading papers, teaching kids how to write better, teaching literature, etc. And then by night, I was actually selling cars. I did that for 6 years. So for the dealership I work for, the company, it's CarMax. Most of you guys know this already. I'd say for my first 3 years at CarMax, we didn't have any type of software that communicated well with each other. So, if I met a customer and I was collecting their initial information, that went into one software program. If they were interested in 3 or 4 different cars, that information went into a different program. Their email went to another program. Their finance application went to a whole nother program, and none of these things will communicate. So CarMax, like a Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 company should, they decided to get some type of software that was like organized, and
Right.
each aspect of the customer's journey would actually speak to each other. And in 2017, I was introduced to Salesforce. And honestly, I've been hooked ever since, but I didn't actually think about taking it seriously until last year. I didn't think about, taking last year. So you said you kind of started out as an end user as well. Could you kind of give us just a brief background of that?
Yeah, so my background in general actually is informal educator. So I actually was a dance instructor
Oh,
in
nice.
schools. And so I'm very passionate about education, especially in Black and Brown communities. It led me to start my own business in that aspect. And so I actually quit all my jobs last year, like maybe June, or actually a little bit before that, around April, because I just was working on a job and I felt like at my age and with my potential, I knew I could do so much more. So I said, let me like really bet on myself. And so I actually picked up a consulting contract thanks to my mentor. And the nonprofit we were working with was using Salesforce. So I became an end user and I was like, this is so cool. And then I found out it could be a job. So that's how I also became obsessed. I went on Trailhead and I just fell in love. And I think like for Salesforce, it's because it feels like a video game while you're learning, collecting badges and
Yeah.
leveling up. Like it feels like a video game. So it was addicting to me. And then soon before I noticed, I was putting in 8 to 10 hours every day, pretty much studying. So I was able to get my certification in like 2 months.
Wow. That's amazing. And you just dropped a lot of gems there. And educators, I know, listening to Brandi right now, you're thinking like, what do you mean it's like badges and whatnot? So we're talking about gamification, which is a big, at least at one point, it was a huge buzzword in education. We don't see it a lot now because of COVID and all of the other issues going on in education, but gamification is still really important. Brandi, could you like kind of describe like what Trailhead is? Because previously me and you were talking about Trailhead and I was telling you how long it took me to go through Trailhead for the Salesforce admin pathway. Could you just describe it?
Sure. So Trailhead is free to sign up for anyone and everyone. And you go on there, you create an account, and essentially it is a learning platform that has to do everything with Salesforce, as well as all the potential business paths that you can take, all of the ecosystems that you can enter. And so you go through modules, which are like bite size or chunk size versions of a specific portion of what the Salesforce platform looks like. And you begin learning that way. And that's how you collect badges and then reach different levels.
Yeah. So yeah, and a lot of it pretty much is self-paced. I do believe in Trailhead, like there are some options to take like some live classes or to work with different experts and whatnot. But for the most part, Trailhead is pretty self-paced. So it requires some discipline, requires a lot of organization. Obviously, if you're in education, you're working more than likely full time, and you have a lot of responsibilities. So you've really got to organize your time, get a calendar, set up a to-do list, and you have to make a commitment to Trailhead. And there's so many different options. Like Brandi is a Salesforce administrator. Brandi, help me out. What other options are there? There's a business analyst.
Business
pathway,
analysts.
Salesforce.
Now they've also even done specializations with specific softwares. You could go solution architect. If you like coding, you could become a developer. You can specialize in email marketing, for example, email specialist, and then they have clouds. You can become a consultant and specialize in nonprofit, marketing, sales, service, community, and it's endless.
I've played around a bit, Brandi, with that nonprofit cloud. It's amazing because if you think about like most nonprofits, they, and I hope I'm not being condescending when I say this, but they can use all the resources, just like an education that they possibly can get. It organizes everything. You have to think for a nonprofit, each contact or lead or potential donor, their information is vital to the longevity of that nonprofit. And of course, most nonprofits, they are collecting funds, fundraisers. You can literally keep whatever data you have about a potential donor, or like, let's say someone donates in, I don't know, 2020, and maybe you don't hear from them for a year or two, like, because of COVID and whatever, economic things that are going on, they can't donate, but then they come back in 2023. You have all of their information right there. So you can pick up like where you started. So I just feels like it's a, like you said, like Brandi said, it's a CRM, it's a client relationship. I want to emphasize the relationship part, management system. And it's about not just starting from square one, not being familiar with the person that you're trying to sell something to or you're trying to do business with. And that's really where businesses are going. And that's why Salesforce is so popular. Let me kind of jump besides Trailhead. Let's just jump completely because my tribe they're very intelligent. Of course, they're educators. So they're going to do the research. So they're probably going to be listening to this episode. And while they're listening to this episode, they're going to do their Googles. They're going to hop on LinkedIn. They're going to start researching, okay, what is this Salesforce that they're talking about? And does this potentially fit me as a potential career? Salesforce has been in the news lately, along with a lot of other tech companies. And Brandi, I'm going to be really, really honest. I work for an ed tech company right now. I'm not in Salesforce yet, but I work for an ed tech company. And yesterday we had a 13% reduction in workforce. And they emailed us about it. So we got one email that said, hey, we're going to be laying off 13% of the company, and you'll probably find out in the next 15 minutes if that's you. And like coworkers, managers, everybody's panicking.
Right.
And then 15 minutes later, like, yeah, everything came to a head. Now, I was lucky that I was not a part of the layoff, but like my colleagues were. And you look, Microsoft, they've announced that they're going to be laying off, I think, about 10,000 people.
Yep. It's been about 50,000 this week between a bunch of companies.
Was it Alphabet, which is the
Alphabet was Google associated.
Yeah. So that brings me to my point. Salesforce laid off, I think
8,
they had 2 massive layoffs, right? I know the 10% of the workforce was 8,000, but Brandi, did they have one before then? Either the end of last year or very, very beginning of this year?
It might be the end of last year, yeah.
End of last year, they had one too? Now, people ask me, right? Because my family, my friends, they all know, hey, he's working towards a Salesforce certification, and he wants to be a part of that ecosystem. And I'm going to be a really good fit. But let me ask you what my family asked me. Are you worried about all of these layoffs in tech, specifically with Salesforce, since that's, our career path and what we're talking about? How did you feel when you see something like that? Salesforce lays off 8,000 employees.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
I'm not worried per se because especially with Salesforce, what people have to understand is yes, Salesforce is a company, and yes, these other actual tech companies are laying off people because they overhired during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and didn't make the best choices that they could have made. But
Mhm.
as far as Salesforce, the software, it's used by so many companies. They're always looking for the basis is administrators. They're always hiring for
Mhm.
administrators. So many companies are using this software, and I think more and more companies are going to continue to use it as they grow. I want people to understand that are trying to break into tech, that breaking into tech does not mean that you have to work for a tech company. There are
Exactly.
companies in manufacturing, GovCon, and all these other different fields, healthcare, right? And they're
Mhm.
hiring like no one's business, and they use Salesforce. Education as well. I definitely was interviewing not that long ago for a Salesforce business analyst position with Success Academy. And the job I
Mhm.
actually work for now is an education nonprofit, and we are growing really quickly as well. Um, and so, I want people to understand that the hiring climate right now is really tricky to maneuver, but there is still space to break in if that is really what you want to do. And I think, it's been rewarding for me.
Excellent answer. I gave you the bait and you just walked in and you took it. You took it. I love it. But yeah, I emphasized that in a previous episode is, we keep hearing about, and I love your sweater, by the way. We'll talk
Oh,
about that
thank
later.
you.
But like people keep talking about, tech bags, tech bag. I want to get a tech bag. I want people to really understand, and you just laid it out perfectly, is that tech is, it could be an industry, but being in tech doesn't mean you have to work for an Apple or a Microsoft or a Google. You don't have to work for them. There's tech, and like I said, CarMax, right? Like they have
Mhm.
Salesforce admins and business analysts
IT.
and data analysts, IT. Our marketing uses Salesforce for CarMax. Like, and that's just one company. I mean, pick your favorite department store,
Mhm.
Nordstrom's, Macy's. If they don't use Salesforce, I guarantee they use a CRM system.
Yep.
You
McDonald's,
know
all
what's
of them.
interesting, Brandi, and I love going off topic, but there is a educator
Mhm.
who was studying for her Salesforce admin. She got her Salesforce admin, and someone introduced her to HubSpot. And so, if anybody knows anything about HubSpot, it's like Salesforce Light.
Yep.
and there's a bunch of HubSpots, right? Like or
Mhm.
companies that kind of model what Salesforce does. Salesforce is just one of the biggest or top notch or top level, but she works in HubSpot as a HubSpot administrator. And I think they have their own certification process and whatnot. And so the reason why I just want to bring this up is, we're talking about Salesforce, but that could apply to almost any technology, especially one that's considered as a SaaS company, where basically a company is selling software to a business in order for that business to be more efficient, to be more
Right.
effective. And essentially, that's what a CRM does. So, Brandi, let's go back a bit. So, just take me through. So, let me ask you this first. Are you working remotely, or do you still have to go to the office? Is it
So
hybrid?
so my company is flexible. We can work remote or hybrid. I personally chose hybrid, but I only go into the office 1 day a week.
Nice, nice. And so just take us through, like, what does a typical Monday look like for Brandi? Of course, you have two roles in one. Um, but I think, both of those would be helpful in just kind of explaining and laying out a visual for educators.
Yeah, so my company, and this varies depending on company, but my company isn't a meeting heavy company. We only have 3 definitive meetings a week. So we have a Salesforce sync that's like with just the Salesforce department. We're small. Then we have an IT department meeting. And then I have a one-on-one with my manager every week. Other than that, it's when I need to schedule meetings to talk to people since I am a business analyst. But as a Salesforce administrator, depending on your company, you could also have something like that. Salesforce administrators typically are very independent. work on their own a lot. If you are by yourself, that's one thing versus if you're with a team of admin and you report to, a director of application, enterprise application, something like that. So a typical day for me on a Monday, I don't have any meetings. I wake up, do everything I want to do to get ready for the day. First thing I do is log on, check all my emails, make sure I didn't miss anything, if there's anything I need to respond to. And I spend a lot of my time just doing my work. So we use Microsoft Outlook on our calendar. So I have time blocked off. And my company is great at respecting our time blocks and not, putting in a meeting randomly so that we're actually being productive. I have the time to, from 9 to 12, I'm gonna, be in Salesforce, do support tickets, do my work, whatever that looks like. 1 o'clock, I might go outside, take a break. But I think the best thing about working in tech, especially with like a good company, is that freedom you have. And, they always, like my manager always says, oh, we hired an adult, so we trust you to get your work done. And they're not constantly clocking me. So, if I decide like Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to work really hard. Thursday, I might not open my computer for the day except to just check emails, but I might have to go run errands and do life stuff, right? So it just really depends on how you spread your time throughout the week and making sure you're the person that's being organized, prioritizing how you need to. But I really think it's great for families or someone that has kids and different things like that. Now you have the freedom to go pick up your child from daycare, and maybe you're someone that wants to do work overnight, or you have that freedom, which I find is probably one of the best parts.
Beautiful. Love it. I love that for you. That's beautiful. I really love breaking things down. Let's really break down. So again, you have 2 roles, but what are the top 3 most frequent tasks that you have to do as a Salesforce admin throughout the week for your job?
So I would say, first right now, with like this form that I'm working on building. So I'm using a third-party software. So every day I check my email to make sure I'm getting updates after I send in drafts of like what the forms look like, because I'm building it on Salesforce. And so what the goal of it is that when someone goes on our website, they fill out the form, they want it so that the data is automatically recorded into Salesforce. So okay. I've been working lately on building a very complicated flow for that automation. So that's been taking up a lot of my time, in addition to making sure I'm handling support tickets, which basically means anyone in the company that uses Salesforce has an issue. They send us a request and tell us what the issue is. We have to go into Salesforce and resolve the problem for them, and then tell them, hey, it's fixed. You can try whatever you were trying to do again. So I would say that's definitely something I do the most. My current project that I'm working on. And right now, I'm helping my team we have a lot of duplicate entries as far as data is. So I've been the person working on cleaning that up. So that can also be time consuming, because literally you have to compare 2 records, find out what is, different or what's missing, merge them or delete one and go from there. And there might be like 100 of those. So yeah, I'll be like, oh, let me do 10 of these a day and, knock it out. But yeah. I would say those are my top 3 things.
Beautiful. And just to summarize again, she's working on a project where there is something your company has asked you to do, so users can input information to a form, and that information goes directly to the Salesforce org. And the second thing you mentioned is that you are handling cases. So whatever issues they might have, users, employees for your company, they submit a case, and then it's up to you. And how many admins are there, for example, at your job?
So the Salesforce team in itself, there's 4 of us. So there's one other person that has the exact same job as me as admin/business analyst for a different programs department. And then we have like a senior support engineer who she just helps on the back end. She does a little bit of coding, but she also helps with support tickets. And then my manager, who's the director of enterprise applications.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so again, 1, she's working on projects. 2, she's working on cases, support cases for her colleagues and whatnot. And then remind me really quick again, what was number 3?
Working on duplicates, removing
Working
them.
on duplicates. Yeah. So we're talking about data quality, data integrity. Okay.
Correct.
Which Salesforce is huge in. Now Salesforce has acquired a few businesses over, I want to say maybe the last couple of years. They've got Tableau, they've got MuleSoft, and they
Slack.
also have Slack. I think most educators know what Slack is, especially because of COVID. Everybody, teaching remotely, we have to meet and communicate. So I would assume most people know what Slack is. If you know what Discord is, you definitely know what Slack is. It's a way to communicate basically with your colleagues, managers, supervisors, etc. Have you used or do you have to use any of those other platforms that Salesforce has purchased recently?
Yeah, so my company uses Tableau for our reporting. So for those that don't know, Salesforce itself has its own reporting and CRM analytics capabilities that are amazing. And we just use Tableau just because, like I said, some of our programs are not in Salesforce yet, and they were introduced to Tableau before Salesforce. So I do use Tableau. Actually, I'm working on my Tableau desktop specialist certification right now while I'm working on my Salesforce business analyst one. And I've also I haven't used it too much, but I did a project on my portfolio when I was interviewing has to do with Slack and implementing that in Salesforce.
Beautiful. And I just love how this conversation is flowing. She's working on flows and the conversation is flowing. Let me ask you something really, really technical, really quick. For your particular org, are you still using workflow rules and process builder, or is everything just flows right now?
So because my company is a couple of years old, before Flow existed, they were using workflow rules, process builder. When I joined, the only thing they still have were a couple things in process builder. We still use it, but my manager is like, okay, at some point we have to make time to migrate this to Flow. So we know that Salesforce eventually is retiring all those other tools and they just want Flow Builder. So all of these companies at some point need to migrate over to Flow with their other automation.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for answering that. And so you mentioned like your portfolio. So that leads me to my next question. Like, so you've already mentioned Trailhead. I know me and you off air, we were talking about Focus on Force, which is a third-party company vendor that basically helps prep you for Salesforce. Did you use Focus on Force, or like what other resources did you use to prep for this career that you now have?
So I'm using Focus on Force now to study for my business analyst certification with Salesforce. I didn't for my admin certification, so I used Trailhead. I cannot recommend him enough. Mike Wheeler on Udemy. So
he's great.
Udemy
He's great.
is, another platform, but I bought all of his courses for all the certifications I plan to take. He's very in-depth, thorough, and just really covers everything. And another person that's great is they're married. I can't remember their last names. Emily and Jeremy. They have their own Salesforce sites, especially for associate. I've heard nothing but great things. Everybody takes their practice exams. They have glossary terms and lessons, and they just use their resource and pass. And I've heard the same thing about the admin certification as well. So I definitely recommend them. Actually, her YouTube is Salesforce Emily. She has tips about interviewing for Salesforce admin roles, and yeah, so she's great as well. Those are definitely two people I highly recommend that I used.
So you got your certification, and then was the next step you started working on your portfolio?
So for admin certification, another thing that I did was I built a custom application in my org, and it really helped me to understand all of the different parts. Like essentially I created my own use case and scenario from scratch and just went into Salesforce. So I'm one of those people that have to do things to learn them really thoroughly. So that was really helpful for me in addition to Trailhead. And from there, I was like, I was reading that having a portfolio would be helpful for interviewing. So I said, okay, let me create like 3 more other projects. So what I did was go on Google and I started looking up Salesforce admin jobs, and I would look and read the descriptions and see what were the things most in common between several postings. And then I would try to work on a project that was similar to that, because even though I didn't have experience besides end user experience, that would be the best way to show to a potential job that, you know, I am capable of doing the work that you're asking me to do. So from there, I built my portfolio. I have 4 projects on it, and then I put it within my resume. It's like a clickable link on my resume, and I started applying. So I applied for 32 jobs within a month, and I ended with 5 final rounds, 3 offers, and I picked my company. My company is actually the second company I ever interviewed with. So that's a fun story. But yeah,
Congratulations. Wow, that's amazing. And
thank
I
you.
hope everyone caught those gems. She basically created her own use case, her own scenario, and used that to help really submit all of the things that you learned in Trailhead. And then not only did you do that, but you added 3 more, and those are based on job descriptions that you were finding, I'm assuming, on LinkedIn or
So I use LinkedIn a little bit, and then
okay,
also Google as well. Like I will look on LinkedIn for a job, because
sure,
sometimes LinkedIn has, you know, expired jobs or a lot of applicants, which might seem very overwhelming if you want to apply to a role. So instead, I'll look at the job on LinkedIn, and then I'll Google the job and see if that job is available on the actual company website, because they're going to check those applications before they move on to their third parties where
for
they
sure.
posted that posting. So that's mostly what I did for a lot of the jobs that I applied for.
Great advice. Yeah, definitely. I love that. That's another gem. So then your portfolio total, did you just have the 3 or was it 4 in your
Yeah, it was
portfolio?
4. So I tried to do like very different things. So I had, hey, I built an application. For example, another thing that's mentioned a lot in job postings for Salesforce admin is being able to document your work and train, you know,
Mhm.
other users, which just essentially means that you're able to tell other people how to do something in Salesforce, because as the admin, you're essentially the subject matter expert. So I did a project where essentially I wrote an actual documentation and I did a video. And then I did the Slack integration. That was another project I did. And I can't remember my other one was. I think it's data related, but yeah.
Yeah. And you came up with these all on your own.
Yeah. So
That's
I
amazing.
was in a boot camp, but I didn't find it to be as helpful. And I felt like I took, you know, extra initiative and just kind of figured things out on my own from other skills. I got advice from my mentor about, you know, how I should go about things. And I definitely will pay attention to a lot of recruiters on my LinkedIn, see what
Yeah.
they say, and get advice from there as well.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. Woo. I hope you guys are
Yeah.
writing this down. I hope you guys are writing this down. No, honestly, because you know, whether someone says, hey, Salesforce is for me, but I don't know if I want to go the admin route.
hmm
Maybe, you know, they're more into data analytics. Well, like you mentioned, you're also a business analyst. So if you guys are into data analytics, a business analyst is pretty close. And Brandi, let me know if I'm wrong. Would you say
hmm
business analysts and data analysts or data analytics, they are pretty closely related for the most part?
Somewhat, yeah. Like I would say business analysts use a lot of data analyst skills. Data
Yeah,
analysts are more into their skills and less have to do kind of like the
right,
communication
right,
and stakeholder management and liaisoning that business analysts have to. But
right.
we as business analysts, we have to have those skills, and we
Yep,
have to have data skills, because we have to prove why a function or a implementation should be done by data. So we have to
right.
analyze data, analyze processes, different things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the gems that Brandi is dropping right now, again, I hope you guys are taking notes. I hope you're going to re-listen, save this particular podcast, because again, I think it's going to apply to anything that you're doing pretty much in tech, especially in Salesforce. Um, Real quick, Brandi, what would you say is the what's the most enjoyable part about your job, your career, and what is the least enjoyable?
Most enjoyable is definitely well, first of all, so my company is a company that actually does social impact because they're an
Mhm.
education nonprofit. So, they work to help Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks with their education as far as like being connected to underrepresented fields. So, knowing that I'm doing work that is aiding in that mission is my favorite part of my job because it's connected to what I'm personally passionate about in education. My least favorite part of my job, that's hard because I'm having a blast right now.
That's good. I
Um,
love that.
um, I don't think I have one right now. I would
No, that's
say,
good. I love that.
of course, like I said, the imposter syndrome. And
Yeah.
if you're someone who is not okay with actively not knowing something and being such a problem solver for yourself. I mean, yes, you can rely on your team, but you want to be, as an admin, it's great to be as self sufficient as possible. So there's going to be times where you get stuck, and I've definitely gotten stuck, especially with this flow I'm building. And it becomes really frustrating. And because I'm new at my job, I don't want to be someone that's really bothering my manager if I don't have to. And I will try to exhaust every resource before doing so. So, those little hurdles that you'll have can be frustrating. And, if you're not someone that's a problem solver, you need to become one.
For sure. For sure. You definitely working in the tech space. That is, besides, communication skills and whatnot, being able to solve problems is huge.
Mhm.
Um, and educators, that's honestly what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. I
Right.
would say it's at a different level when you're talking about solving technical problems or coming up with technical solutions. Um, and some of that could be related to having imposter syndrome. Um, but again, leaning on your resources, making sure that you're communicating with your colleagues, with your manager, supervisor. You can figure some things out. I know several software developers, and they have very honestly told me, and Brandi, you tell me if I'm wrong,
Yep.
95% of them are like leaning on like Google and all of these other online resources. And
Yep.
I can't think off the top of my brain
Chat
some of,
GPT, the
yeah, yeah,
new
yeah.
AI software. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's really big. Yeah, because pretty much whatever technical problem you're trying to solve, it's probably been solved before. So that
Especially with
information is definitely out
Salesforce.
there, especially with Salesforce or
Hmm.
HubSpot or whatever technology you choose to become certified and an expert in. All right, one last question for you, Brandi. And again, appreciate you so much for joining us. This is great. Uh, what final piece of advice would you have for someone who they're in education or whatever, because I'm pretty confident that there's other people that listen to this podcast, but they're in a career field that, it's losing its luster. They're not as excited anymore. They're looking for a change. They're interested in tech. They may be interested in Salesforce. What advice, even if it's not something technical, just life advice, what would you advise them to do as far as like potential next steps?
So I always advise people the quickest way to get into tech is doing a lot of self-reflection and realizing what your transferable skills are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Then from there, you also want to examine what are the changes that you want in your life. Are you someone that's going to be, once you enter the field, you want to be someone that is doing a lot of learning and professional development so you can keep upskilling? What do you want in your work-life balance? What is your personality type, right? Even if you want to be a business analyst, you have to be someone that is okay with having a lot of conversations sometimes, which is funny for me because I'm more of an introvert, but here we are. And or if you're an introvert, you might want something more that's like a Salesforce administrator or a technical writer, something where, it's really just about the work you're doing and sending a report over. You don't really have something that's really meeting heavy. And then you want to take all of those things and begin to look into on Google, look into what possible career paths you can go into, especially depending on what your industry is. It's also definitely going to be quicker to or easier to pivot if you want to stay in that industry. If you work in healthcare, go check out, your job hiring, your job is hiring in the IT department at your job. Especially with healthcare and with healthcare Salesforce administrators, that is definitely you'll have an advantage trying to stick within the industry that you're already in. If you're an educator, like I said, there's so many ed tech companies out here, Udemy, Blackboard, Genius, all the learning management systems, and schools themselves, more and more charters are using Salesforce as a solution to their issues. So definitely staying within your industry if you can. If not even the job you're currently in, and just seeing if they have an IT department. Another piece of advice is if you're able to shadow someone or you have that extra time, where you can work or take on another project or ask for someone's help, getting work experience is going to be better than anything else you could do when you're applying, because it is really hard right now with finding true junior, true entry level roles that aren't saying entry level, 5 years experience, entry level, 3+ years experience. And it's very hard to sell yourself, even if you do projects and have a portfolio without actual work experience. If you can't do that, your best bet is going on somewhere like Upwork or Fiverr. And doing freelance, and actually you're still legitimately working for people, just for a lower fee. And it's a great side hustle as well. But all those avenues to gain actual work experience, really work on your skills, really take a look at those job descriptions, look what's in most demand right now, especially in industries. Even if you don't want to do Salesforce, cyber is hot right now. Cybersecurity is hot right now. They're throwing money at cybersecurity people, honestly, which makes sense. As with the climate that we're in, more and more scams, they're going to need more and more people that are subject matter experts in that area. And most of all, just don't give up. I told myself when I quit both my jobs that I wanted to bet on myself, and I had received a job offer from like some other random job, and it was more money than I was making. And my mom was like, you should take it. It was a casino, so they had great medical, great benefits. She was like, you should take it. I said, or I could wait another month or two and really bet on myself to get the number and get the salary I had in my mind. And I was able to quadruple my salary, life-changing for me. If I look as young as I am, I'm just turning 26 in NYC. I quadrupled my salary. I'm about to get my own 1-bedroom apartment, and it's possible. You can really do it and change your life. You just have to be disciplined enough. And you have to don't give up. You have to just believe in yourself and just sit down and actually do the work.
Well said. Well said. That was beautiful advice. The experience is super important. I will say, you said Fiverr, Upwork, starting freelance work. But even if you just volunteer as well, if you can't get those opportunities, internships, apprenticeships. I'm thinking of a website, catchafire.org. I'm not sure if you've heard of it before, but they definitely, those are typically nonprofits who do need IT help. Definitely need help with Salesforce because there is a nonprofit cloud that Salesforce offers. There's also an education cloud that Salesforce offers. And so, like Brandi said, there are a lot of charter schools who are using Salesforce. Because think about what we said earlier, nonprofits have to build a relationship with potential donors. A charter school typically, or even a private school, they typically raise funds. At least in my experience, they raise funds as well too. So they have a lot of data, a lot of information. They need someone to help them as an admin kind of administer that technology. Yeah, for sure. So Great advice, Brandi. Again, this is great. I'm so glad that you were able to take time out of your busy schedule. And yeah, listeners, I hope you guys loved it. Brandi, if anyone wanted to get in contact with you, is there a way they can reach you without them being too, sometimes people get a little aggressive with questions. Hey, I heard you on the podcast. Can you look at my resume? Can you da 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 da? So we want to be respectful of Brandi's time. She's a very busy woman. She has 2 jobs in one, 2 careers in one. So is there a way they can reach out to you? Or
Yes, so you can find me on LinkedIn. It's my name, Brandi Jones, Brandi with an I. So it's Brandi Jones, CSM, Certified Scrum Master. You can find me on TikTok where I do tech tips during the day and like movie reviews at night. That's
Nice.
at non-fluff tech. And then on Twitter, you can also find me. I'm very active there, and I do respond to my DMs and help a lot of people. That is at UNSCOOPABLE_B. So unscoopable like ice cream _B.
Nice. Dope. And very, very last question. Brandi, where did you get the Tech Money sweater?
Yes, so it's from this girl. She also works in tech. I can't pronounce her last name, but she's a Black lady, so support Black owned business. Her name is Amber, and it's Tech Universe.
Tech Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. Beautiful. Love it. Brandi, this was awesome. You are freaking great.
Thank you so much for having me, Leo. It's been a pleasure. And anyone, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me. I answer all the time.
What can I say? Mamba out.
Thank you for listening to the Black Scholars Podcast. For more information, go to blackscholarspublishing.com.
You just gotta go.
You will never know what you could ever be. If you never try, you will never see. Stayed in Africa, we ain't never leave. So it wasn't no slaves in our history. Wasn't no slave ships, wasn't no misery. Call me crazy, or isn't he? See, I fell asleep and I had a dream. It was all black.